Am I the only one who's tired of the quote unquote realistic Batman and misses when he was able to have a fantastical world? I want to talk about that. Hey there, this is your Matt Doodle to my Thomas Hand Doodle here with another video, and today I want to talk about how I miss when Batman and its world was able to be fantastical. Now, I know what some of you are going to think, that, oh, you miss when Batman was just silly and goofy and bright and colorful. Well, for me, some of that is true, but what I mostly miss is when Batman himself was able to be grounded and his world to be impossible. I feel like that's what we miss as Batman fans. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like a lot of the realistic Batman movies that have come out, because I have said I really like the Matt Reeves version of Batman, but it only scratches an itch that I like about Batman, to the point where I even made an entire video on how this version of Batman could be more colorful and silly in a previous video that you can see right here. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about what we're missing by not having a fantastical Batman world. We are missing the everyman quality from Batman. And what I mean by that is because he does have to fight, muggers and crime lords on a daily basis because, he's Batman. That's who he is. But I feel like if you take away his fantastical elements, you just make him a guy fighting bad guys, and that's about it. But when you add the fantastical element, you make him seem more mystic, and how awesome it is that this mere mortal is able to come across these impossible threats and be able to fight them and be able to subdue them with his wits and his, ingenuity skills, right? That's what I miss. And I want to give some examples on how you're actually missing a lot of the depth that could happen by not including these fantastical elements that they have shown in Batman shows that people say, is kind of grounded in things like that. Like, we have examples from all the way back to the Batman animated series.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
That show was supposed to be the Batman that is somewhat relatable, somewhat realistic in the sense how neo-gothic it is, if that makes sense. But they would introduce the fantastical elements in there. But because how they were introduced, it felt real to us. That is something I also like to say. I feel like people forget that just because something does not exist in our real world, it can't be relatable. You can't feel the emotions for it. And that is completely wrong. And I'm going to use the example of another franchise, Guardians of the Galaxy. And the reason why I want to talk about that real quick is because James Gunn is going to run this new DC universe, which makes me excited for that. And even though I don't know if he's going to direct the Batman movie, he is going to be the leader of the universe. So he probably has to have final say and things like that, right? But when he directed the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, he introduced us to literally a talking raccoon and a talking tree and made us feel and love them unironically. Because of how they felt like people and they felt like characters, we did not care that they were raccoons or they were trees. But he did not just ignore that fact. He acknowledged what type of characters these are as they showed us Rocket's progression through the first, second, and third movie.
Rocket, you're drunk, all right? No one's laughing at you.
He thinks I'm some stupid thing. He does. Well, I didn't ask to get made. I didn't ask to be torn apart and put back together over and over and turned into some little monster.
And how he accepted himself. That is something we can relate to. And that's what I want to talk about for the Batman. If he can bring that type of behavior for Batman and his regular, we can get so many cool ideas, like with Mr. Freeze. Before the Batman animated series, he was just a goofy villain that's just kind of a throwaway thing. But because of that, which was, again, quote-unquote realistic, they were able to make him a sympathetic bad guy. And what made him feel realistic or feel alive was that all he was trying to do was save his wife from an illness that doesn't exist or that is impossible to cure. So he uses very fantastical ways of getting to it. It's pseudoscience, which comes into a lot of fictional things we watch. Whether it could be as realistic as possible, they're going to have some fantastical elements. So when you add it to these type of things, this can work. For Mr. Freeze, all he wanted to do was protect his wife and became a snow cone in the process and try to get money to find funding and do all the stuff to keep protecting. And that's all he wanted. Yes, he became an icicle, and that's as far as the fantastical things go. Yes, he has a gun that's ice, but his base motives are human, very human, protecting your loved ones. And that heartbreak that happened to him is caused of human nature, not because of some weird mystical things.
This is how I'll always remember you. Surrounded by winter, forever young, forever beautiful. Rest well, my love. The monster who took you from me will soon learn that revenge is a dish best served cold.
Or we go into people who are like Clayface. Depending on the version you want, he can be an actual psychopath, which does exist in our world, which I think people forget about. Or he can just be someone who was turned into a clay monster because he missed how he looked, which is very relatable because a lot of people do plastic surgery to look better, but sometimes that doesn't always work. We put that stuff in characters like Clayface.
City boy wanted more of this stuff? Then let's give it to him.
Oh, not that way. Please.
Let's give him all he'll ever need.
Or like Poison Ivy. Maybe there's not too much with her, but she just wants to protect the Earth, which is like an eco-friendly person, but she kind of went insane about it. But that's what we want to see. And by adding these fantastical people, you add another layer to Batman himself. I know it's mostly talking about the bad guys, but by adding it to him, you see Batman's compassion. You see Batman understanding the dilemma that these people have gone through and try to help. And because Batman can be a little more fantastical by being a super genius, he can do things that most people can't. And he can have more ways of helping them. He can try to find cures for Mr. Freeze, or he can try to find ways to cure his wife with his impossible knowledge that he has. Or he can fight Mr. Freeze with, his cool new suit that should not exist, like a Freeze suit, right? But because we know the underlying motives, the fantastical doesn't have to feel silly or feel stupid for someone like him. Or with like Poison Ivy, you can make him, empathize with her, but understand that this is wrong and how to have a middle ground. Or with Clayface, he has to be creative. And this is what I mean with the fantastical stuff can be very cool with gadgets and techniques and all that stuff. Because that also gets me into something that I miss so much from Batman, that is his fighting style. A lot of times when we see Batman now, especially when it comes to live action stuff, which is trying to be realistic, the fighting always just seems like a brawler, or just seems like someone who's, punching mostly. Yes, there'll be some techniques, like in the Nolan ones, but they always felt bulky and slow and stiff. And in the Robert Pattinson, yes, they showed the punch and the oomph, but there wasn't too much to it. There wasn't acrobatic skills because, I guess, quote unquote, realistically, he couldn't do that if he's in the bat suit. But that's what I miss. If he was in a fantastical setting, we could see him be as flexible, as strong as he needs to be in that moment. Now, that doesn't mean he needs to be completely like Spider-Man, fantastically flexible. I'm just saying that we could get scenes like Batman in the Justice League where he dodges weapons and it would look awesome. But you find a middle ground of showing like, yes, he can kind of do more than a person can, but that's the extent, and that's what I like. And this is where I have to give Zack Snyder props on how he made his live-action version of Batman look really cool and make him extremely flexible, even though he's an old man, and not make it look goofy. But that's all the praise I can really give him. And then this is weird because this also gets me into something that I find so weird that Batman hasn't done in live action ever, to be honest. And now it seems like it's a fantastical thing if you add that. Him knowing multiple languages. And the reason why I brought that up is because now it feels like Batman knowing a lot of languages is fantastical, which is weird for someone who was supposedly trained for so long to learn about psychology, ethics, the law, fighting crime, and things like that. Wouldn't it make more sense, too, that he would try to come up with some languages? Now, I'm not saying he has to know everything, but it is cool when we see him know more than English. Because it felt weird when I watched The Batman and he didn't know basic Spanish for a riddle. And for someone who, who is Mexican and understood that, I was confused by not seeing Batman could know at least Spanish, which is supposedly a language that most people tend to learn as a secondary language over here. So it was weird that Batman, of all people, did not know that, even though I know this was his first year in that movie. But you miss some of that coolness of him scaring criminals by still being Batman, but in their own language. The first thought that comes to mind is that scene in Justice League Unlimited where Batman scares a terrorist or something by showing that even though the terrorist is trying to say that, oh, you won't get anything out of me because you're not speaking my language, Batman goes up, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I'm going to show you, like it shows in the scene.
Who are you working for? Értem,
And it's like one of the coolest things ever and one of the most badass things. But I guess it's not realistic enough for him to at least know some languages, which is so weird. And it kind of like, misses the fun of Batman. Is it realistic that someone could know every language or know every fighting style known to man? No, because that's not how the brain works. But it's a nice power fantasy. What I miss is that Batman is a power fantasy of someone who found the will, found the strength to do all the things that a lot of people want to do and put that into practice and put it as a being. And if you want to have something silly, but you don't want to explain it too much, there is Robin. I can't believe that having Robin has been a thing that means that it's unrealistic. Now, is it wrong to have a child be in the battlefield? Yes, it is 100% wrong to do that. But we forget this is a world where there are people who can, destroy buildings with a single touch and things like that. And also, you forget that kids also have free will of their own. I'm not saying they don't need guidance or in certain cases. I'm just saying that kids will do what they want. And if Robin, especially Dick, is like Batman in the sense of type of person who wanted to get the killer of his parents, he's going to do it. But because Batman is there, he's going to try to stop that. And if he can't, he's going to try to train him up to protect himself in any way possible. Now the colors, you see it's ridiculous. Again, kid, he's going to do whatever he wants. And yes, I'm not saying that you just let kids do whatever you want, but this is a world where Batman has terrible sense of social sense of things. He, again, dresses like a bat and doesn't really like talking to people. But this is a character that can ground him to be a better person. Now, is that unrealistic? A father, a person pushed into fatherhood, having to be a better person. That is somewhat relatable to people. Whether that means you're a caretaker, taking care of a younger sibling, or someone in your care, that's it. That's how I see that.
Does the hurt ever go away?
I wish I could say yes. But it will get better in time. For you. That I promise.
Again, there's going to be that fantastical element of things that don't make sense, that don't actually exist in our world, but if it exists and makes sense in the world, then that's how it feels real for us. As I've said for Guardians of the Galaxy, again, that felt like a world that exists, that lives because of the characters in it. And that's what I feel just needs to be in the Batman universe. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm saying that all the realistic stuff has to go away, like the Penguin or the Falcons or anything like that. No, you can keep that, but show how the fantastical also affects them. And you can have fun with it, again, like with Penguin's gun. That is a fun tool, and it's gimmicky and hilarious. But because the new Batman is going to be in the world with the new Superman, that means how would someone like Batman, who is still human, who still, has to deal with human things, deals with stuff like that, and how his idea of the world changes because of all the fantastical elements. How would that affect them? A lot of this is just, in my idea, just cool storytelling. But those are just my thoughts on why I'm tired of the realistic Batman and why I miss so much of Batman's fantastical elements and why we need that. And how straying away from that takes away some of Batman's charm and originality. And if you like this video, and you want to see more, I made an entire video where I talked about how the Batman can go into that, fantastical place in this video right here. But if there's nothing else, this has been Dudamite. I hope everyone stays nerdy, and I'll hope to see everyone in the next video. Bye.